Yeah, that's what's going on outside. So today we're talking about how do you cope when you can't stand one more minute of the elements in your trailer, RV, or van. Because honestly, living like this, it's almost like being outside 24/7.
I've been waiting for a chance, and I think it's finally come.
Hi, my name is Jill, and you are here at Gathered Wisdom, but I think you just got all that. So I am making this video for me as much as I am for you, because this is a thing that comes up all the time. Being in New Mexico, the biggest issue I have is the wind. But part of living in a tiny space like this, it's almost like you're living outside, which personally I love. The reality is that there are periods of time where you just can't take it one more minute, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I don't have any super fabulous answers for you, but I do have a few coping techniques I apply to myself, so I thought I would share them with you. And probably, the most important thing that I have found is that it is a mental strategic challenge, not a physical challenge. Part of our coping is to try to control things around us, and living like this, I totally get why people built houses like fortresses. They installed things like air conditioning and heating, because the closer I live to the elements, the more I realize why people invented things to combat the elements. It's a trade-off. And I love, all the windows in my trailer. I love the fact that I feel like I'm outside even when I'm inside, except for when it rains and the wind blows, which is getting to be ridiculously frequent here in the center of New Mexico. But that's a side issue. The challenge I have found is to not go crazy. I will tell you a couple things. One is I have made the trade-off of physical discomfort for emotional and mental discomfort. And, I worked as a social worker and a therapist, and I hated my life. I hated going to work. I hated everything about it. Even though physically I lived in a house, I had money, and I was comfortable. Now I love my life. I hate the elements on occasion. So I'm willing to make that trade-off. Maybe there's a perfect balance somewhere in this world, but I don't think it matters where you live. You're always going to have something that you have to contend with. And so part of that, to me, it's much easier to be happy and to just manage temporary situational issues versus hating everything about my life and just being in crazy coping mode all the time. So I, number one, acknowledge that and am willing to make that trade-off. Two, I use it as a learning opportunity. I started all this because I wanted to walk in faith. I wanted to develop my spiritual practice in action, out of the house and into the real world. And that's what life is. Life is challenges. It's not about controlling everything around you. It's about becoming who you want to be regardless of what's happening around you. So I look at this as a challenge, because I could be in a war zone, I could be in prison, I could be in all kinds of super crummy places and still be learning this lesson. But the way I look at it is, this is an easy way to learn a hard lesson. That's just my take. There's a couple things that are also super practical. One is when the noise is really loud, I tend to run the radio, or I don't have television, but I have a computer. So I tend to run noise because it calms the dog and the cat down. Right now, the wind isn't bad, but the whole the wind's bad, but we're not shaking like we do sometimes. So when the animals start to get really upset, I try to drown it out with sound to make them more comfortable at night when I can't sleep because it is too loud. Sometimes I put in earphones and I listen to storytelling podcasts, things like that, or music, just to give myself a break so that my mind can relax enough so that I can go to sleep. Two is I just suck it up, because you know what? Sometimes life is hard. It is a trade-off. It's a decision. I would rather be happy most of the time than be miserable most of the time. And so to me, the physical discomfort of my surroundings, it's an okay trade for the bigger picture. And so that's my take on how to cope with the elements when you think you just can't take it one more minute. So that's today's little bit of wisdom as we cope with this nomadic life. Although I gotta tell you, I love it. I want you to love it too. And with that, we'll see you next time.
I'm miles above you, don't care what they're saying.